welcome to Optimum Solutions Educational Webinars. My name is Susan Warren, and I'm a member of Optimum Solutions support team. I'll be your host for the educational webinars. For our educational webinars, we've selected topics that we think will be of interest to payroll and HR professionals, and we hope you learn lots of useful tips from watching our educational webinars. If you think of other subjects that you'd like to see presented, please email me at swarren@optimumhris.com. Thanks for watching and enjoy the webinar.
Good morning and welcome to Optimum Solutions Detect and Defend Against Tax Scams webinar. My name is Susan Warren and I'll be your presenter today. It is tax filing season, so that means that phishing season is officially open, and we thought this would be a timely topic for everybody today. The IRS is very vigilant in their fight against cyber criminals, and unfortunately, those of us in the webinar audience today are the prime targets for those criminals. Today, we're going to look at some phishing emails and talk about the likely recipients of those kinds of emails. We'll look at how you can spot a phishing email, and sometimes that is very difficult. We'll talk about what you should do if you actually do spot a phishing email. Have you ever been notified by email that you have a refund coming your way? Things that make you go, We'll talk about the pit that no one wants to fall into. What if you actually do suffer a data loss? And we'll talk about your very best defense, and that would be you staying alert. Cyber criminals are incredibly intelligent, and they are very good at what they do. To an unsuspecting, busy payroll or HR professional, it is nearly impossible to spot a phishing email at first glance. Those emails often look totally legitimate, but the criminals know exactly who in your company has the private information for all the employees in the company, you, and that's straight where they go with their polished looking requests. Phishing emails look like they're coming from a trusted source, PayPal or Apple or your bank. They may look like they're coming from your IT staff or someone else that you work with, or maybe someone in your family or a friend that you do share emails with regularly, or even the IRS. But these emails are very dangerous because links and attachments can load malicious software on your computer or completely turn your system over to the cyber criminals. And all it takes is one click on your part to slow down or completely crash your computer or give a cyber criminal access to your entire network or redirect you to a malicious website. Sometimes one click is all it takes to freeze your entire system and have the cyber criminal charge you ransom fees to release your system back to you. So there are lots of methods used by these very intelligent cyber criminals to infect your systems and embed very serious problems into your networks. Here is an example of what we call a bad attachment phishing email. This may be a little small for you to read, so I'm going to read it to you. There is an attachment here on this email, but the body of the email reads, "Attention," with an exclamation point. This is to inform you that your legal address was typed mistakenly while processing the previous tax form for previous year. In order to avoid large fine fees during the next tax period, please contact our tax inspector as soon as you check the statement in attachment. Best regards, John Noble, tax expert. Well, that sounds pretty legitimate. And if you were in a hurry, you might just click on that attachment. But there are several clues here that would let you know that this is not a legitimate email. And the next slide is going to show you the things that will make it obvious to you how you can tell. The signature says this is from John Noble, but if you look at the from address, that has absolutely nothing to do with John Noble. It's from Ariana at hwtx.com. That's an external email address that was not known to the recipient of this email. Has nothing to do with the sender of the email, John Noble. So that's the first clue. This was an unexpected attachment. You should always be very leery of any unexpected attachments. Don't ever click an unexpected attachment. And any kind of attachment, a .doc, .docx, .zip, any kind of attachment can be malicious. This particular one downloaded a Trojan on the user's system and was just wreaked havoc on this particular user's system. The body of this email also has some clues. It's coming from an unknown source, and it has a lot of urgency about it. Attention with an exclamation point. They really want to grab your attention. And then they're threatening you with, in order to avoid large fine fees. And also, that's, if you think about it, that's probably not what someone would really say. You might say, in order to avoid large fines, or in order to avoid large fees. But in order to avoid large fine fees doesn't really make good English grammatical sense. So that's probably a clue that this was not written by someone whose first language is English. And very often these kinds of emails are coming from outside the United States. So pay attention to things like misspellings or strange use of grammar, mispunctuation, or things like that. Those are also big clues that you might have a phony email here. And lastly, on this particular email, the signature, best regards, John Noble, tax expert. That is just about as generic as it gets. Someone who's associated with a company is probably not going to sign tax expert. That's a clue that this is a phishing email. He put his company name there. So that's another clue. If you're busy, that's a pretty obvious clue that would not be too hard to catch. So there are pretty many hints in this email that would make you notice that this was a phishing email. Here's an example of what we call a spearfish. And this is typically the type of phishing email that is sent to payroll and HR department managers. Now, this is an actual example of an email that is known to the IRS that's been sent around a lot. you can see that the criminal in this email has even copied the CEO's photo in the email signature. This is actually an email that was sent to someone. It's actually been used a lot, the type of email here, and they've copied the signature for the CEO, even down to the photograph. Now, I can sit here all day and tell you that this looks suspicious, but how many of you work for impatient CEOs or bosses who ask you for reports and lists ASAP? Would this be unusual? I want you to send me the list of W-2 copy of employees' wage and tax statements for 2015, and I need them in PDF file type. You can send it as an attachment. Kindly prepare the list and email them to me ASAP. Would that be unusual? Would you be suspicious? If you had to get a bonus payroll out to the bank in the next 15 minutes and you got this email, what would you really do? Would you just send the file? I have a personal payroll friend who got this very email, this wording for an email with her boss's name on it. And she called me and asked me how to create a PDF file out of her W-2 file. And I recognized the wording as the IRS scam that had been announced. And I told her it was not a genuine email, and she needed to call her boss and her IT staff immediately. That sense of urgency, and also there's some incorrect use of grammar and some sort of misspellings and things that aren't quite right in the body of the email. So there are some clues here. And I consider this payroll friend of mine very intelligent. She's been in payroll for decades, and no one knows and understands confidentiality better than she. That just goes to show how difficult it is to recognize these scams. Catching these spearfish emails is not easy. But one thing that you could do would be to create a policy and remind everyone that no one is ever allowed to publish employee Social Security numbers, and certainly not in an email. In a case like this, take a moment and call the sender of the alleged email. I'm sure that even if her boss was a bully, he was glad that she called him to question this email rather than compromise his employee data. The last thing that a CEO or a president of a company wants is to see his company's name on the news or on the front page of the newspaper because of a data breach. You have to be suspicious. Maybe he'll say, yes, I asked for that. Chances are, if it's worded the way that that previous slide was worded, it is the phishing scam that the IRS has announced. Now, if you do find yourself in receipt of an email claiming to be from the IRS asking for personal information, there are some things that you should do. The IRS has a process in place. First of all, do not reply to the email. Do not open any attachments or click on any links, and forward that email immediately to phishing@irs.gov and delete the original email. Don't worry about writing down these email addresses. I'm going to forward this presentation to everybody who registered for the webinar today. And so you're going to have these links. I'm going to have several links and addresses throughout the webinar today. If you receive an email asking for personal information, but it's not from the IRS, this is a link to visit for more information about that kind of an email. Or you can forward that email to these addresses. And again, I'm going to send you all this presentation, so you'll have these links where you can report other kinds of phishing emails that are not necessarily from the IRS. I always find it refreshing to hear that there are people at the IRS with a sense of humor. And in response to phishing email, the IRS has implemented the Don't Take the Bait program. And they have issued various tips over the last couple of years dealing with specific scams and tactics that the criminals use in their variations on the theme. And I'm also going to send you this link so that you can take a look at the Don't Take the Bait tips at this website. They have some really good tips there. Here are a couple of examples, just some really good ideas. If you should get an email telling you that they want you to start sending payments to a different location, things like that, requests like that, make it a company policy that you need to have a second sign off by company personnel, just to make sure that for sensitive data like W-2s or wire transfers or anything like that. If there's a telephone number on that email requesting that data, don't use the telephone number in that email. Use a telephone number that you have used previously for that agency. If it's your IRS location, use a telephone number that you have used in the past for contacting the IRS, not the telephone number that's in the email making the request, so that you can confirm that it is truly a genuine request. Because the IRS almost never requests anything via email. There are some really good tips at Don't Take the Bait. That's definitely a place that's worth checking out. We've got a refund for you. Well, who wouldn't take a look at that kind of an email? Sounds very enticing. Sure, I want to get money. There are some scams that you can warn your employees about. Anybody who files an income tax return and is expecting a refund would certainly look at an email saying, I've got a refund for you, but we need to update your bank account information. Well, the IRS is not going to ask for your bank account information with an email. The IRS is not going to request that you update your e-file information with an email. The IRS is not going to call you on the telephone and ask you to pay your tax bill with gift cards. These are all scams. Also, the cyber criminals have made a lot of profit by making calls to taxpayers who are less proficient in speaking English, and also those with hearing impairments. They can convince them to send in money for those gift cards, and they're very successful that way. And another thing, don't be fooled by caller ID that looks like it's a call from the IRS. Caller ID is very easy to spoof these days. So even though the caller ID says it's from the IRS, that is not necessarily proof. So you can share those kinds of scams with your employees and yourself too. Just the IRS is not going to do those kinds of things. Also, let your employees know the IRS will never begin a chain of contact with email. They won't inform you of a refund by email. They won't ask for updated information by email. They won't ask for payment by email. They don't ever start contact with taxpayers by email. So if an employee says, I got an email from the IRS and they say they're going to do this, that's not how the IRS starts a chain of contact. It is possible that the IRS could send emails to individuals at some point during transactions, but they will never initiate contact with taxpayers by email. Never. So, what if you have your brain buried in that bonus payroll that you have to have to the bank in 15 minutes, and you got an email, and you had a spreadsheet handy, and that's what it asked for, and boom, you sent it. Well, we'll talk about excuses and rationalize later. For now, do not waste time. The IRS has a process, but you have to be quick. If you notify them in time, they can take steps to make sure that the employees who were compromised are protected from fraudulent returns being filed under their names. The first thing that you need to do is email dataloss@irs.gov to notify the IRS of a W-2 data loss and provide contact information. And in the subject line, type W-2 data loss so that that email can be sent to the correct recipients at the IRS. And in that email, do not attach any personally identifiable information on those employees who were compromised. Next, email the Federation of Tax Administrators at statealerts@taxadmin.org, and they will give you information on how to report the victims to the states that were involved. And then businesses should file a complaint with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, and the businesses may also be asked to file reports with local law enforcement. It's very important to notify the employees that their data has been compromised so that they can take precautionary steps. And here is another link that I'm going to send you with the information that you can share with your employees. It's going to help them get information about what to do in the case of identity theft. If you did reply to a scam email, you should forward that email to phishing@irs.gov. And here's another link where you can visit to get additional information. This is specifically for payroll providers in the case of W-2s and Social Security numbers that have been compromised. For preventative measures, your IT staff can install IT staff can consider, like intrusion detection systems. They can set rules that flag emails with extensions that are similar to your company emails, or creating email rules that flag emails where the reply email address is different from the from address that's shown, or color coding email correspondence so that emails from internal accounts are one color and emails from external accounts are a different color. And this would have helped my friend who thought she'd gotten an email from her boss, an internal account, email account, but it actually came from an external account. So even though it said it was from an internal address, it would have been the color of an external account. So I really like that tip. I think that's a great idea. I'm not an IT person, so I'm not sure how easy that would be, but I like that idea. But you may be the best defense when you use your common sense. Pay attention to what you're reading in your emails. Why is an email from the IRS asking for life insurance or annuity information? That just doesn't make sense. Also, usually the IRS does not send emails with and then they end up with. Do everything you can to say no to the cyber criminals by paying attention to your emails and not taking the bait on those phishing emails. But I do want to leave you with one thing that I found on social media, and you know that means it has to be true. You know those spam emails that you deleted from the foreign prince who just wanted your bank account number so he could make a deposit in your account? Well, he passed away and the authorities found $27 billion in his apartment that he couldn't give to you and me because we deleted his emails. We thought they were spam. Darn it, we missed out. So there, stay alert, my friends.